Welcome to your new life sentence, also known as your 9-to-5 job, where the only crime you committed was needing money to survive.
You know, I really feel like these videos could actually make a point if they spent as much time on actually thinking about what they were going to say and the absolute, like, if you just reviewed it for half a second and realized just the generic nature of the bullshit that you're spewing, you would probably have a good video. Like, if you just took the time that you spent on editing and doing animations and After Effects, you could probably get some people's attention. But this is just slop. This is pandering. Do you have an opinion? Or are you just repeating verbatim, rephrasing, taking it into your own words what some fucking Reddit post said? Anyways, fellas, I'm going to be coining the term Draconian Hopecore, because that's what my content is going to be going forwards. I realize that I actually have opinions, and they're very strong ones. I just didn't think that I did because they didn't align with any overt political belief, and I realize that's because everybody's doing the same shit. They're complaining about inane things and pretending like it'll solve all of the problems that they have in life. But the thing is that everybody has the same problems, and they're just saying that the other person's solution, that is the reason why we have these problems, and they're just babbling back and forth and never getting anywhere. Right now we have some very heavy, like, anti-work sentiment, like the world is ruined, the job market's ruined, the housing market is ruined, and I gotta be honest, I think it's complete bullshit. I've gone over the statistics, I've looked at things, I've checked things. The expectations that people have about a lot of things are purely based on a fantasy. Like, if you want cheap houses, there's places you can get cheap houses. The reason why our grandparents were able to get cheap houses is because the markets that they bought those cheap houses in were shit. They moved to places no one wanted to be at. The only difference is that people wanted to be there after they moved there, after people influxed in mass. And we're going to talk about the job thing in half a second, but let's just keep that in mind. I'm sick of this fatalistic moaning and bitching about just every single aspect of life. Like, oh, I can't do it. Something is literally preventing me from doing whatever. Like, every single thing that you're prevented from doing. Let's say you want a job and you say, I can't get that job. And I say, why? And you say, because I don't have the qualifications. And I say, can you get the qualifications? And they say, no, because I didn't go to college. I don't have previous experience. Well, can you go to college? Can you get previous experience? And they say, no, because of this and this and that. And if you keep going down that line of reasoning, you'll eventually get to something that they can do, and it all just fades into nothingness. Problem is, and I'm just going to state this right off the bat before we delve into more detail, is that people are expecting the top percentile of everything in life, and they don't realize that the opportunities that they have are not the top percentile of opportunities. You're not going to get the cushiest job. You're not going to get the best opportunity in the best places with the best apartment. That is not something that you're entitled to. You're not entitled to a good deal. In fact, there's a reason why it's called a good deal, because it's rare, and chances are you're not going to get one straight off the bat just because you feel entitled to it.
Congratulations. You now get to spend the best years of your life trapped in an office, surrounded by artificial lighting, pointless meetings, and Karens arguing how their Excel spreadsheet isn't printing correctly, and demanding IT department to drop everything to fix it. Because obviously, their work is more important than anyone else's.
Pay attention to the framing here, right? There's an underlying implication that an IT person's job should be working on something important. Like, just because you're qualified to fix bugs and errors in computers and troubleshoot shit, like, there's this underlying perception that they should be doing that at the highest level, right? That this is some sort of shame on their profession to be helping out the old people in the office and catering to Karens, and instead they should be off working at fucking Tesla or Starlink or in the government fixing, like, real important things, making sure the economic models and the computers that run them are working efficiently. That's just not the case. If that were the case, then no IT people would have work. Again, this is like the expectations that somebody should be doing the most important things so then they can get the most recognition for it. The point is that that is literally their fucking job, to fix stupid problems. And if they didn't want that to be their job, they wouldn't have got the job. And if you say they were expecting something else, I mean, if they were expecting something else, they should have done their research. They're really shooting themselves in the foot with what they choose to get into. Your ignorance is not an excuse for where you end up. The great part about this is that you can choose where you end up by making decisions aligning with where you want to be. You can choose to learn about the things that you actually want to do. You don't have to do the shitty IT job as a prerequisite. That is not required of you. You do not have to get an MBA to become an entrepreneur, to get into business. You don't have to go to graphic design school to be able to start making graphic design. All you need is a pirated copy of Photoshop, or to spend too much time on troubleshooting forums. The problem is that these people aren't passionate about what they're going after, so they don't know exactly what details that they should be going after. The initial problem is the biggest problem, is that they didn't figure out if they wanted to do that thing to begin with. And then videos like this come out and alter the perception, saying, oh, you actually didn't want to do this. And if they believe it, they will believe it. They suddenly, if that really gets deep into their head, if that seed gets planted, they lose sort of the ability to reframe from that position. And now they need to start over, go find something they, quote unquote, actually want to do. So it's videos like this that calcify people's beliefs into this framework that you do not want to do this, when they could have potentially found the passion in it, or used it as a springboard like they were probably promised, to no avail, right? The promise was probably facetious, like, oh, you can use this as a springboard, right? Just do this while you're waiting to, while you're working on your other thing. But people don't know what their other thing was. If they didn't have something in their mind that they actually wanted to do, then they'll never be able to use anything as a springboard. They will be fucked. And then you get people like this telling them that, oh no, it's actually pointless and you'll be stuck there and it's prison. And they start to believe that. If they start to believe that, then they're really screwed. Then they have to start from rock bottom. And on top of it, you get this other notion that all work is like this, that all work is fake jobs. Anyways, thank you. Let's move on.
Well, back in the day, work was simple. You worked, you got paid, and then you went home.
Man, shut the fuck.
First off, if life was that simple, you would get bored and kill yourself. Straight up. Second off, if we're simplifying things to that level, then nothing has changed whatsoever. Back in the day, my ass. You don't live there. You don't know what it was like. You weren't even alive at this time. This is just some idyllic age of past days yonder over the horizon backwards that you just fantasize about. It's something external to project onto, to compare to. It's this figment of your imagination that you can juxtapose to what you're currently living through. And it's no longer cute. Back in the day, whose fucking day? Your great-grandparents' day? Oh yeah, let's just look back to the beginning of the Gilded Age. If you were there, with the current knowledge that you currently have, wow, I just repeated myself there. Interesting. With the current knowledge that you currently have, you would be complaining about the fact that there isn't healthcare, that they've got no VA for the veterans, right? If you're talking about skyscraper building days, if you want to talk about the way that veterans were treated and use some like great example, you just shoot forward to the 50s, and then your entire argument would be a moot point, because then they had other different problems. You can shift the grounds around all day, constantly, back and forth, to get the point that you need to make your point. But the fact of the matter is that the age that you currently live in has never been fucking easier. There's just a lot of red tape around everything. And nobody likes to read no one likes to read the fine print. No one wants to look at the red tape and cut it. No one wants to step around all of these little barriers that got put into place because of all the other things that the previous generation has complained about. And furthermore, What we're doing right now is complaining about things so we can put more red tape in place, but this time it comes with a red carpet just for us. Every single generation does this, and it's nothing funny. It sucks. We're doing exactly what every single generation prior to us is doing. The people that worked on those skyscrapers, do you think they were happy there? Do you think they were like, "Oh my God, I'm so glad this is so simple and we can just chill and work on these skyscrapers all day. Thank goodness I don't have to go home and pay taxes." Like, if you were actually trying to make a good argument, you would just point out the fact that they didn't have to pay taxes back then. That, like, okay, maybe that was around the time that income tax was introduced. But it was honestly because life was getting too easy that they had to nerf everybody and introduce income tax. Don't quote me on the exact dates of that. But they had the same envy that we have nowadays, which is like, oh, billionaires make too much money, so then they started taxing everybody's income. Yeah, it makes everybody feel better in the moment, but what are the downstream effects of that? What happens when the people who are required to pay you don't have enough money to do that, right? What happens when you take away 40% of their profits? Do you think they're going to give you a raise for that? Do you think they're going to be able to? That's ridiculous. The world could be made a better place with a little bit of extra thinking. And I'm not even trying to make the world into a better place. I'm content with the way it is because I understand on some level how it works. But if you want to make these changes, you absolutely can. Again, it just involves a lot of work. You can't just expect the entitlements for things to happen in the way that you want them to. And the way that it's currently going, it benefits politicians. All this legislation that makes things more difficult, that funnels more revenue into the tax system, it benefits politicians. And what they'll do is they'll tell you that that system benefits you. And everybody knows that they're fucking lying. They just don't want to believe that their guy is lying. But they're both lying about the same big thing, is that they're stealing your money and making it harder to get it. So then they can have more of it. If they just tell you that the way that they're going about it, if you oppose it, then you're actually trying to stop the thing that you're complaining about that they're causing. And it's this really interesting cycle where people get so convinced that the things that'll fix their problems are the things that are making their problems, and they just don't want to admit it, so they find some other boogeyman. And furthermore, on the topic of big corpo, let's discuss the fact that what happens when you tax big companies and their profits into the fucking ground? They need money. Where do they go to get the money? They go to the government. What do they need when they don't have enough overhead to really bolster their long-term planning? They need regulations in place that prevent certain bad things from happening. They need insurance. They need all these different subsidies, and they end up working so closely with the government that we end up with all of this legislation, frankly, that everybody complains about. All of these stupid workplace rules and regulatory bodies, and the fact that McDonald's has somebody come in and check everything every once in a while, so then no, they don't get sued because they don't actually have the fucking overhead to protect themselves from a very, very vicious customer potentially if they got some snot in their hot dog. We're looking in all the wrong places for these things. You want companies to stop being so stingy? Then we need to stop being so fucking stingy with them. This is not an apologetic for big business, for faceless entities. This is common sense. I really don't expect the people to think that this is a popular view, because it's not. The framing over time has gotten so just out of alignment that we can't even discuss these things without seeming like we're supporting the devil or something. And now, because that system of legislation and making rules about everything has gained so much popularity and it's become so profitable, they need to tell you about all the benefits of it, so then your vote protects their actions in the grand scheme of things. And guess what? All of this bloat and bureaucracy keeps on weighing you down. You're the one that's paying for it. They can afford all of this extra slop. But guess what? The little guy, if he wants to join a business, he can't. The barrier of entry was raised. And now everything becomes more difficult for everybody except for the person who's in the government's pocket, who's making deals with not directly like the government, but people within the government. And you can sidestep it. They might not even be working exactly with the government. You can get a bunch of companies together in a similar industry and make a volitional regulatory body where they get to make the rules for their industry. We used to call this a cartel, a monopolistic cartel. It's just changed into different names. And then now that you have these rules from these independent regulatory bodies, guess what? These dictate the courts when looking at antitrust laws, and then antitrust laws only affect the small businesses that are trying to get into, that have to take shortcuts, otherwise they'll run out of money. And then guess what? There's less competition. And then guess what? They don't get to pay as high. And then guess what? Who's feeling the effects? All because we wanted to tax some people that we never see anyways, that pay our bills? Yeah, what a great job. And this heavy tax applies to every employer. If you want to pay somebody's salary, you need to be making enough money to be in the highest tax bracket, basically. So let's just think about this for a moment. Thank you.
Blue-collar workers built skyscrapers, and people respected them for it. Your job actually mattered. You clocked out, and that was it.
I've heard this notion a lot that blue-collar workers used to be a lot more respected, and I really don't see the evidence for that. I really don't. If anything, people were so much more pretentious in the past. Like, think about any single period of time where there were plebeians, right? The hoi polloi, the people. They were looked down upon from above. The only people that respected them were them. Once we got the middle class, that's where we had some shaking up of like the skill differential. Even and there used to be the middle class. This was like the merchant class. And those people still usually did not have much respect for the plebeian. This notion that there is a lack of respect is almost completely new. Like the idea that there's a problem is completely new. No, not the idea that there's a problem, but that it's a new idea. There has almost never been respect for laborers. Almost never. In a general sense. And usually when we say a general sense, we mean the people that have left written records. The people that had the opinion of high society that we listen to. And those people look down on it. But if you ask the average person, they will say that they respect the blue-collar worker because they understand it. We're just amplifying the wrong voices in this case. And it's not just the voices of the, you could say, elitist people that's getting amplified. It's the voices of the people that are amplifying the elitist people, so then they can look upon the whole situation and say, look, this is a problem, give us more respect. I believe the blue-collar workers do deserve the respect that they can get. I mean, frankly, there's a lot of really shitty blue-collar workers. A lot of people suck at their job. And I'm seeing that change a little bit, where there's a general consensus where everybody wants to move towards this idea of quality, right? Again, looking back and yearning for those cathedrals, the European cityscapes, the brick buildings, the stone mansions, the homes with souls. Individual people get the respect that individual person exudes onto the world. If you're not getting respect from something, it's usually because you suck at your job. And then an easy way to say that you're not getting the respect that you quote unquote deserve is to lump yourself in with a whole that you're a part of that generally gets respect. So could you get better at your job and do a respectable job? Or can you sidestep that, which is much easier, and get internet brownie points for saying that you don't get the respect that you are entitled to? In all reality, the exchange of respect is a deeply individual thing. It cannot be put at scale. And if you want to get respect, first and foremost, be respectable. Be somebody who does a good job, makes a good product, a person that people like to work with. Once you zoom out and make these social justice demands for respect, you end up putting more regulations in place, which make people irritated, and then they respect you less. But on paper, the respect goes up, and it's like fake respect for your fake job because you have a fake perception of the world. And in all reality, you're not living in it. Reality, that is. It's a fantasy. You're living in this fake thing, and that's why everything feels fake. Be real, and people will be real with you. Try to manufacture that by imposing the responsibility for these things onto the world around you. Good luck. I'll say that. But it really comes down to you. It is your responsibility to get these things, to be able to have these opportunities, to be able to gain respect. And you do not deserve respect from anyone under any condition. It is their choice to give it. It's a voluntary thing. You have to exude that feeling within them. That is your job. You have to make them respect you. And not by like some strong-handed means, like I just said. You have to be willing enough to do the service in the manner that the other person respects. And if you don't like that, then good luck in reality. Just straight up. You're not going to be happy. You're not going to be... Because everybody will not be acting as they quote-unquote should. And then the world will suck. Because you're looking at something that isn't real. Something that never could have existed. So enjoy. You get the world that you create. The world that you see. And if you see a shitty world and you try to bring everybody in on it, they're not going to like you. They're not going to give you that respect. And then your perception of the world will just lower exponentially. Anyways.
Your boss wasn't sliding into your DMs at 10 p.m. with a quick request.
Yeah, the cell phone was invented and people could handle time-sensitive things in a time-sensitive way. Anyways, if you're going to get a job that handles that particular thing, that is your choice. It's your prerogative. It's at your discretion, I should say. When you go for the job interview, and it's listed in the job description that, or maybe it's not, this kind of thing usually isn't, but you can ask at the job interview, am I going to have to be on the lookout for emails and calls after work time? Is that part of my set of responsibilities? And this should be an assumed yes, depending on what industries that you're going into. A lot of white-collar things. If you're in an important position, right, a high-paying position, a desirable position, then you need to expect that to happen. You can't just think to yourself, oh, la-di-da-di-da, fingers and ears, it's not on the job description, I can complain about when it comes up. No, stop doing that. And anyways, if they are doing that and it's not pertinent, you can turn your phone off. You can not respond to them. You can leave an email sitting in your inbox and just tell your boss, yeah, I was just, doing life stuff. I'm not gonna, I couldn't check. I was too busy for that. Do I need to? Do I really got to? And most of the time they'll be like, oh yeah, oh shit. And likely they will send you emails at times that you can respond to them. One of the things that a lot of people do is that they'll get in the habit of responding to these emails when they should be living life because they're just constantly checking. And then that gives the boss or whoever's sending the email the impression that you're able to do that. That's something that you're willing to do. If you're not willing to do it, don't do it. They're not going to fire you on that basis if it wasn't in the job description, if that's something that they tacked on at a later date, or if they just tried out to test the waters to see if you would do it. Right? Have some goddamn assertiveness. Stand your ground. Don't fall for that shit. Holy Jesus. You don't have to be pressured into things. And again, the reason why they do pressure people into these things is because they don't want to pay you for it. Right? Again, That's not really within their budget. They can't just be like offering overtime to anybody, like $20 if you answer this email. I mean, they probably could. That'd be a really good incentive structure for a business to incorporate, honestly. But let's be honest. Just stand up for yourself if you want that problem to be a non-issue.
Then the 1980s happened. Wall Street, finance bros, and the rise of corporate America. Suddenly, college was the only way to be successful, and office jobs became the dream.
I'm sick of this whole bullshit notion that, like, everybody says you have to go to college, and that pressure is what made a bunch of people ruin their lives. There is a paradigm shift with the best job opportunities all the time. There are always industries opening up and closing and getting bogged down, and there's being too much of them. Like right now, it's a bad time to be a lawyer. Actually, it might not be, but there's a lot of lawyers. There's a fuck ton of lawyers right now. You know what? There's not a lot of pilots. Pilots are one of the most, they're like the highest paid blue collar worker in America, and they've got programs now trying desperately to get anybody to go into that job. You want to end up making $300,000 a year, $500,000 a year, get into being a commercial pilot. Go do it. You can't get a traditional student loan. It'll probably cost you $100,000, but you could be making that within the first couple of years after getting signed on to an airline. There is no reason why you need to be going to college to get a degree for an obsolete job because somebody way back when is recommending it to you because they haven't checked up on the market and they don't know, and their honest thought is that it's still a good option. In the 1980s, it was finance, and then it was programming with the Y2K boom and the internet era, and now it's like AI bullshit. I don't think that one's going to pan out all too well. It's another tech startup thing, and you can't say that everybody needs to get into a tech startup thing. It's not a good idea. But if you want to go the college route and you want to have a guaranteed salary, you cannot be gambling with risky degrees. And finding out what is a risky degree is very, very easy to do. If you want to have a job, go into the medical field, right? Actually, that's like the best one right now. I'm not too sure about like engineering and lawyers, and do pilot also. Add that one to the list. Do medical and pilot. Right? In the medical field, the higher the level of education that you get, the better off you're going to be, because doctors are always in demand, and they will be in even higher demand in the future. This is my prediction, by the way. You can hedge against it if you want to. I don't care. You can go long on my prediction of the medical industry. But people are chronic diseases. Everybody's fat. This all causes, like, look at the leading causes of death. They're fucked up because of bad habits. So if you want a job, take care of the people with bad habits. They'll have to pay you somehow. And if you don't like the way that the medical industry works, get into politics. Start trying to take down the pharmaceutical companies and the subsidies, and bring back like the insurance companies, the medical insurance companies. Go after those guys. Holy moly. You can't take a suggestion that somebody gave to you in the past and take that as a promise for your stability, especially when you know it's not true. That's the big kicker here, is that you know it's not going to work out, and you do it still. Despite them, just to be like, oh, look at this. It didn't work out. My whole identity is about proving them wrong, and proving them wrong is failure. Whoa. Well, that's a great idea. Good job, buddy. Because we don't want to do things, we're looking at these promises of ages past that existed for a split second, right? Oh, I can't get a house because I wasn't because I wasn't an adult with $50,000 during the 2008 financial crash. Oh my God, dude, there's going to be another opportunity. And you don't need like a once-in-a-lifetime deal to be able to do that. And furthermore, if you prepare for those once-in-a-lifetime deals, you'll be there for it. And you don't prepare for those once-in-a-lifetime deals by trying to recreate them. That's how you get failure. You don't gamble all the time. You gamble when the stars align. And sometimes it pays off. I mean, regardless of whether or not these people's advice could work in a perfect storm, you should still disregard it and try to build up some fallback. Do what you know is practical in the current market. I mean, we're at the point where everybody knows that just go to college is a bullshit set of advice because there's too many college degrees that are, frankly, kind of useless. So stop following the fucking advice. The problem isn't that it's bad advice. It's the problem is that everybody knows that it's bad advice and they still go along with it. Just to be like, haha, I told you so. But you lost. You're the one with student debt and trust issues and an outlook on life that sees everybody as lying and that there's a system that's broken. Well, you went through the system in the worst fucking way possible, fell on your face, and now you're complaining about it, saying that the rest of the system works exactly like that. You followed a trend that died 20 years ago. My guy. Specialties die out. They resurface. New ones come in. Be smart with these things, or go the safe route. All the resources are there. You have nobody to blame but yourself because it inevitably goes back to your own choices that shaped these circumstances that led you to the point that you're in. Now, you're in a position where you know. Congratulations. What are you going to do now? There is literally an infinite number of things to do. And you likely know all of the ones that you shouldn't do, which means that you can narrow down to the things that you could do. So, start acting. Start doing things. You'll have to start doing something to be able to build up a skill, right? That takes consistent effort over years and years and years. And I'm not talking about consistent effort like, I need to practice this skill once every 2 weeks for the next 3 years for a couple of hours, and then complain about it when I can't get a job related to this skill because I spaced out my learning sessions so much that I forgot everything I learned on the previous one and didn't actually learn anything. Like, that's another huge issue is people don't know the amount of commitment that they have to some certain thing to make it work. Especially if you're trying to create your own success, which a lot of people are trying to do. That is astronomical in the amount of effort and dedication and sheer just insanity that you need to be able to put into that. You need to be fucking delusional. There is no other way to do it besides pure luck, and if you go the pure luck route, you're probably going to fall on your face at some point because you won't know how to handle what you have once you have it. And even the traditional quote-unquote safe routes, you still need to put in at least like something like 60-70% of the work that you need to put in to it if you're delusional. The only problem is that if you go the quote what I'm calling the delusional route, right, the self-made route, you're going to have to also force yourself to do that, right? You don't get the benefit of having a boss that tells you what to do. You have to force yourself to do it, and you need to put in more effort, and you need to put in more time and more sleepless nights and miss out on all those valuable years of your life. What are you willing to pay? Because whatever you are willing to pay, it dictates what you get in the end. Do you want more free time now? Or do you want more free time over a long period of time? It doesn't have to be when you retire at 60. It can be like, I'm going to shut myself in a room and rot in my work for 5 years, and then you get more free time. Maybe even only if it's just because you're so good at what you do now that you don't have to put as much effort into your work. You could still be working until you're 60, but it would be like such a casual, offhanded thing that it wouldn't literally even register in your brain. Think of that. Think of how fucking cool that would be. Or you can go in the cycle of trying to put this like huge dump of effort, the dedication, right? The commitment, the upfront payment that it costs to actually have a skill that will benefit you long term, and just try to say that you're associated with this skill and therefore you're entitled to jobs, and then you'll be put in situations where you don't know what to do, and it'll feel like hell and pain, and you'll be working, quote unquote, a lot more. But that's usually just because you're so unskilled, not cut out for it. So, thank you.
And with that, the soul-sucking 9-to-5 grind was born. So, every workday starts the same way. Your first punishment, the morning commute. You sit in traffic for an hour, gripping the steering wheel while listening to a podcast about financial freedom that reminds you how not financially free you are.
I'm going to get even more controversial for just a moment for now. If you're making... We're assuming that the financial freedom in question is the presumed racking up of debt for student loans and car payments and home payments and whatnot. But I'm going to say right off the bat, if you make a financial commitment to somebody, you're not losing your freedom to spend money that isn't yours. You're not losing freedom to do something that you weren't able to do anyways, but now for some reason you feel entitled to be able to do. You are simply in a scenario where you've made commitments. You have to pay off those commitments. You have to realize that whether or not you think the price was fair, you still took somebody else's money to pay for your stuff. And that money needs to be paid back, otherwise the entire institution doesn't work. And I'm not a fan of loans at all. I think that we should completely get rid of loans if we're going to stick with fiat currency, frankly. If we don't have a gold-backed dollar or some stable currency, then there's no point to loans because they mean nothing. It's just fake money. But anyways, if you're gonna play at that system, you need to pay it back. Otherwise, it stops working, and you no longer get the benefits that you have in this situation. Like, it may not seem like a benefit to have student debt, but that probably saves you years and years if you do it properly, right? If you do your research, if you make sure you have the education for this, which, by the way, could take 2 hours of YouTube videos to figure out how the loan system works, like what this commitment is going to be like, the interest that you will accrue, the absurd amount of money that you'll have to pay back. But if you are smart with your decisions, right? If you didn't make the prior mistake that we just talked about, where you go into an industry that's fucking dead because you're spiteful, then that's not going to be a problem because you are going to be able to pay it back. You have to take calculated risks. If your risks are just stupid and you're doing it because it's part of that whole system that you think that you have to do because somebody said that it would be a good option, then, gee golly willikers, you don't have this problem. Then you don't have this problem. Your freedom is dictated by what you can do. What you can do. What you're able to do. The consequences that you're willing to pay for what you want to do. You have the freedom to do anything. Just because you can't wake up this morning and decide, oh, I want to be president, and you can't, that doesn't mean you don't have the freedom to be president. It just means that if you decide that you want that, you need to sacrifice basically your entire life and dedicate it to something for a chance to become president. And only if you really believe that you can do that, only if you believe that, will it be capable? Like, will it be an opportunity that will arise? You have the freedom to pursue everything that you complain about not being able to pursue. The difference is that there are steps removed from the equation to save yourself the embarrassment, to say that I want to do this thing, but I actually don't want to do the prerequisites and put in the effort required. So therefore, I'm just going to say I want to do this. I'm going to say that I don't have the freedom to do this because whatever. It's so easy. Then you get the community of just circle jerk that surrounds this thing, right? Everybody wants orientation in life, and if it's very easy to complain about the way that things are, and a lot of people do it. So if you just complain about the way that things are, you'll find plenty of people willing and ready to listen. You'll be able to build a community out of just bitching and moaning. It's not going to be a pleasant environment. In fact, it's going to perpetuate the apparent lack of freedom. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy for these people when they're constantly focused on things that they can't do, right? And what I mean you can't do it is you can't wake up and be president, but you can wake up and decide to switch your entire life to pursue that course. But the framing of things in terms of the most instantaneous, unattainable, just absolute, like if I asked you right now, if I snapped my fingers and could become president, would you believe me? They would say no, and most people wouldn't because that's implausible. That situation can't happen. But does that mean that you're incapable of getting to the point where the outcome that you seek is a possibility? No. In that sense, you're lying to yourself. You're being dishonest. Am I financially free? Financially free to do what? To not need to worry about money? Yeah, you can find ways not to worry about money. It's not glamorous. It doesn't mean that you'll magically have a bank account that's full enough to cover all of your expenses all the time and be able to do whatever you want and live comfortably, whatever that means. In that sense, nobody deserves financial freedom. That is something reserved for the people that, A, made smart decisions, which the criteria boxes were not checked in the previous example, doing the advice that you know is bad advice, right? That was a conscious mistake. It's ridiculous. This complaint has to stop. It is your fault. That level of financial freedom is reserved for the people that bring the most to society or inherit it in some cases, and then they usually blow it and fuck up the rest of the generations. We don't need to worry about those people. The trust fund babies, the people that inherit businesses, what's it called that people complain about all the time? Starts with a P, I believe, where they bring in their family members to run the business instead of whoever is most capable. Oh my God, I feel so stupid for forgetting this word. We don't need to complain about that because that was never an option for us. Like I said, you can't just wake up, snap your fingers, and be born as a person that would do that, and on top of that, have the supposed merits that you say that you have that would qualify you for that position. Stop worrying about the financial freedom. Why do you want that freedom to begin with? Why do you need financial freedom? Do you even know what you would do if you had financial freedom? Or would you become one of those sad billionaires that ends up killing themselves? Right? Because the default is coke and hookers. The people that get money and are happy are the people that have something to spend that money on, a purpose beyond their money-making schemes. If you can find a purpose beyond that and you know, like, really deeply what it is that you want to do and you can make it benefit others, right? You can either turn it into a product that you can sell and make money that way, a service, or if it isn't related to that and it's purely personal, then you will need to do something else to make money. But if you're somebody that has one of those passions, that purpose, you will find out a way to do it, or you were never that person to begin with and you never had those actual desires. You liked the idea of those things. Because otherwise you would know what you need to do right now.
Also ironic because you're currently spending money just to get to work. Gas, coffee, overpriced parking, it's all a part of your sentence. You haven't even clocked in yet, and you already feel like you need a vacation.
Just be honest, dude. This was recorded for your fucking word count. Your video is 8 minutes long, and I know you want the ads. I know you want the ads. This was simply for the word count. This is like a bad sales pitch. Like if you're marketing a product and you know, you're in the part of the pitch where you have to create the problem and then solve it, right? Coffee, gas, and parking fees as in relation to a sentence, a prison sentence for your job. It's so facetious, it's not even funny. Like if I was saying washing your blankets, this is an oppression. If you wash your blanket, who has time for that? I mean, you have to be out there living life. And here we present the blanket that you don't have to wash, right? Stupid product idea. But do you get the point? Like, he's trying to sell this idea. The idea that a 9-to-5 job is like a prison sentence. It's a snappy title, and a lot of people instinctively grasp onto it because it's appealing. It validates them, right? They're being oppressed. They don't have to think about it too much. But to sell it, you actually have to create reasons. And there aren't any good reasons for it. Like the whole thing about school being like a prison, that's fucking bullshit. School being like a prison, it's more like a prison than a job because you're technically obligated to go there. Your parents are obligated to give you some sort of education, but nobody really wishes that they didn't get sent to primary school. Like overall, it's a system that we do because it works, but the work thing, no, it is completely volitional. You can choose not to work, but what do you want out of life? Do you want something that requires money? Well, guess what? You can work to get those things. You don't have to work, but you don't get those things. Just because you can't get what you want doesn't mean you're enslaved to something. You're not entitled to anything. Anything that you want is additional. It's a bonus, right? You have to put in the work for that. You're not just going to get given things. And I mean, I'm repeating myself, but the coffee, that was such a bullshit throw-in. Parking, most people don't have to pay for parking. Gas, okay. Yeah, if you have a car, you're going to have to buy gas. Do you want to go places? If you don't want a car, if you don't want to pay for gas, get a bicycle. Like, I'm assuming if you're paying for parking, you're living in an area where you can bike from your house to your work. Because the only places that have paid parking are highly densely populated areas. And if it's not, usually there's employee parking. Like, I'm just nitpicking details now. But honestly, it keeps coming back to this idea that we're just making negative videos that validate people's sort of fantasies of perception about reality that allow them to just shirk responsibility for their stance in life. The fact that they're at a point where they don't have what they want. They're not pursuing any sort of community, social orientation. They have no goals and aspirations. They have nothing to give to the world, and there's nothing they want to give to the world. And this validates it. I mean, if you weren't in the 9-to-5 prison, what would you be doing? What would you do? Be honest with yourselves. You can't come up with anything. Just hang out. Just chill. You gonna write poetry, like Karl Marx said, right? The whole situation, the eternal leisure myth that humans can just stop working and just hang out. Have you ever been unemployed? It's miserable, brother. It is miserable. Not if you have something that you're doing that you want to do, but in that sense, you're employing yourself. You're striving towards something. And that's worth doing. You can do anything if you believe it's worth doing, but if you're not doing anything worth doing, then it's not fun. And that sounds very simple, straightforward, but I mean, you can have a job and not give a shit about what you're doing, and you're not going to be happy there, and then you have to look for reasons to validate why you're there. And if you don't have a reason from yourself, then it's external, right? Somebody's making you do it. It's jail. Awful. Horrendous. It was never about having employment. It was about having purpose. And if you have no purpose, employment doesn't matter. It doesn't fucking matter if you have employment if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing. First and foremost, you need to know why you're doing anything. Because if you don't have that figured out, everything will be a prison. Because you won't know where you're going, you won't know what you want, and because of that, everything will feel off and no action will be going towards any particular one thing. First and foremost, figure out what you want.
But don't worry, the real fun begins once you step into the office. Meetings. Lots and lots of pointless meetings. Your calendar is somehow full before you've even opened your laptop. And what's on the agenda? Nothing important. Just 3 hours of people pretending to care while your boss drops corporate buzzwords like, let's circle back on that, or we're optimizing for stakeholder alignment. Basically, a whole lot of words that mean absolutely nothing, but somehow still require a follow-up meeting. And yet, despite all this so-called collaboration, you walk out of the meeting with more questions than answers. Which brings us to the ultimate scam, fake work.
I used to be a believer in this idea of fake work. I used to think it was actually a pretty big deal, that people go to jobs and these jobs are created just so people can fill them. But the more I think about it, the more I look into businesses and how they operate, and the more that I know about actually being part of businesses, like, I was very lucky to have the opportunity to be very close to the upper level of management in a small, almost medium-sized business that was operating out of about 4 or 5 states. Every single job was absolutely necessary to the logistics of moving things around. And this could be biased due to the fact that we were actually creating physical product. Like, we actually had supply chains and we had to send things places. But there was no fake work whatsoever. Everything that we did was necessary, and sometimes people would complain a lot because they had to do the work of like multiple people in this like sort of fake work type of stuff, like answering emails, organizing tax files. And I was in the same office as the guy that did the accounting before he retired. The taxes that were being done, I learned the importance of taxes there. Let's just say that. And it might be different in terms of the necessity of the jobs when you get into things like government work. Again, we're bringing up the topic of subsidies because I'd have worked with government agencies, and I will name names. The EPA, fuck you, EPA, and a few other like regulatory bodies that weren't exactly government but government adjacent, like the ones that I was talking about. And I have so much hate in my heart for these agencies because their jobs are completely useless. Not quite. Their jobs are counterproductive. They're there to protect industries, and I have zero respect for them. So while it seems like even they are doing nothing, they're really just pushing around people in the correct way. So while you might not be getting what you want from them, they're doing what they set out to do very effectively. Like, we had an issue with the EPA. Like, we actually needed them to do something. And I can't give details. This actually turned into a big legal problem. But basically, the EPA is not, they will not enforce their own regulations unless there is the opportunity for a large payout. Not to help the environment, not for anything other than a payout or a publicity stunt. And I get it with these guys. They may seem fake, and I know that a lot of government jobs are very much fake. Like, you could automate the entire IRS with probably a single computer program. That's ignorant. Probably not. It might take a little bit more than that. But you would free up so many jobs. And there's two sides of this coin. There's two sides to this coin, Batman. People are complaining about all the fake jobs, but then when their fake jobs get taken away,
piss their pants. They lose their shit. When we cut the government spending, when we get rid of these jobs, they don't do anything besides protect the interests of politicians. Everyone loses their shit. Because everybody has a motto, everybody has a campaign. Every single one of these useless jobs has a nice sounding catchphrase. They can say, "You're killing the turtles, Batman. You're killing the turtles. If you take away my job, you're endangering the livelihood of a minority community, Batman. You're endangering the livelihood of young black men and women, the illegal immigrants that are here, and don't get me started on the political affiliations of those statements, Batman. They're universal. This is about merit. Nothing has to do with skin color, Batman. It is all about what you are providing to society, Batman."
And basically, all of these useless jobs, it's like the middle-aged white woman job, right? Paper pushers, right? Move the things that could be automated. If you spent one person's yearly salary from one of those entire agencies, you could automate the entire thing. And that's the sad part. That's the sad part, because the two sides of the coin. I almost forgot what I was talking about. Holy shit. Is that you have people that will complain about fake jobs and not having purpose, and then you have people complaining about taking away the fake jobs. So what do you want? Like, people will find the hair in the soup with everything, and it is such a fucking pervasive mindset that just keeps spoiling everything, is that no matter what you do, something will be wrong with it. When people build their identities, their principles around opposing a certain thing, they don't have any solution, nothing to present. They're all about just being against the downsides of one thing. Oh, the downsides of the fake job, we have to get rid of the fake job. We need real jobs. Guess what? You just lost 50 million jobs on the market. Womp womp. The thing is that people will adjust, and I agree that it would be nice if we could get rid of these fake jobs, because then that would open up the opportunity for so many industries to just flourish, but that would bring out a period of depression. General depression. And I don't mean like economic. I mean like physical, with people, mental, sorry. It would not be fun. People would have to learn new skills. Industries would become obsolete, more or less, apart from the automation side of things, and it's going to happen inevitably, so why don't we just do it? I'm on board with that, but I don't think that people will stop at the fake jobs. It'll go from fake jobs, they get rid of it, and they'll complain about no one has work, and it's so unfortunate that they took away all these people's jobs that would have otherwise retired. And all of that quote-unquote experience, right, from the proclaimed fake job is just gone. Wonderful. What the fuck? It's the shifting back and forth, oscillation here. This is the problem. Is that when you have a mindset like this, where everything is oppressive, there is no solution. There will always be the problem. There's always a nitpick. So do we want to sit around and nitpick, or do we want to shut up and find purpose in whatever we're doing, or choose to do something about it? Because guess what? Nothing gets solved when you just complain, Batman. Nothing gets solved. So, fucking do it. I mentioned the coin. I mentioned that I was coining the phrase Draconian Hopecore. And this is what it comes down to, is that if you look, you are responsible for everything that happens to you. And if you're not, it doesn't matter, because thinking that way will allow you to change things and create a better future for yourself, no matter the present or past. Sometimes making yourself responsible for things that on paper you are totally not responsible for creates the worst possible situation in the moment, but it might be the only thing that allows you to get into the mindset to actually change things. Because when you hold the responsibility, you are the one that can change now, in the present, and the future. When you're not responsible, you are waiting for somebody else to fix your own problems, and that is not optimal. There is an amount of hopelessness, dependency, anxiety, just waiting for somebody else to do something, right? It's like this idea that you have to wait for somebody else to do something before you can sign the paperwork and go on with your life. No, take responsibility for everything. I don't care what it is. I do not care. It could be the most horrendous, heart-wrenching situation of your life. And if you say, my parents died in a car crash and I feel awful, I am responsible for the fact that I did not get to spend more time with them. If you say that, I am responsible for the fact that I didn't get to spend more time with them, instead of blaming your work or something like that, then you will consciously look at everything in life and trying to get the most out of it, trying to spend time with other people. So instead of making a situation where maybe something else genuinely was responsible for the death thereof, you create a world that is cruel and mean, even if it is generally more honest. The flip side, you say, I need to get more out of life. This is like such a movie trope, is that somebody goes through a great tragedy and realizes that happiness was where they are. That's what you need to do. That's what taking responsibility for the moment looks like. It's the most soul-crushing feeling in the moment, but it allows you to do whatever, more or less, going forward, because it gives you something that you have an impact on. It allows you to modify the circumstances that go forward.
You're not breaking your back in 100-degree heat, and you're definitely not saving lives. No, your suffering is mental, because deep down, you know that half of what you do doesn't actually matter.
Here's the thing, though, is that when you are doing things, what you are doing matters. Maybe not on some grand cosmic scale that will bring you the respect of millions, but it matters. And by that logic, policemen, paramedics, people that are on standby all fucking day, 95% of their job is doing nothing. Nothing that matters, at least. Is that the case? Do we really think that way? Do you need to think that way about your menial job just because somebody said that you do?
If you stopped working today, the world would keep turning. But if the janitor stopped working, absolute chaos. And yet, the janitor is making way less than Chad from marketing, who just spent 3 hours designing a PowerPoint about brand engagement that nobody will ever read.
It's all about framing. Again, perception. Holy shit. If I say that an egg has laid a chicken, am I really that incorrect? Can you guess what I mean? That a chicken comes from an egg? Yes, of course, but it's totally inaccurate. At the same time, eggs do not lay chickens, right? A chicken lays an egg. In one situation, you get two entities. In another situation, there's consistently one. A chicken cannot lay itself. Blah, blah, blah. This is important because he states that if you stopped working, let's assume accountant, if you stopped working, the world would go on without you. But if the janitor stopped working, the world would be in absolute chaos. But the problem is that he's assigning every single janitor to the janitor situation and one accountant to the accountant situation. Here's the kicker. If every single accountant quit, the world would be in chaos, just as much as the janitor. Why? Because we need the numbers balanced. We need our balance sheets on point. Would it take longer? Yes. The janitor has a very immediate job with very immediate repercussions to not paying him. So, in this situation, it's facetious. It's the framing, right? Yes, what he says is true if we are comparing every single janitor to one accountant, but we're not. We're comparing one accountant to one janitor. The thing is that the accountant can pick up the janitor's job and do it. Maybe not to the same extent, and maybe not with as much enthusiasm, and maybe for even extra pay, because you still have to pay that guy because he's on the clock and he has a job that has a higher salary. But the janitor, can he do the accountant's job? Does he know the ins and outs of the business? Probably not. That is why they're getting paid. The guy from marketing, nobody will look at his PowerPoint presentation. You mean he will have an audience of maybe 3 people that matter? Well, guess what? That PowerPoint presentation goes on to define the entire marketing campaign and the sales of the entire business. Let's assume a multi-million-dollar corporation here. That is the job of thousands of people on the line. If the marketing guy doesn't do his fucking job correctly, it will matter that 3 people did not look at his PowerPoint presentation, because you need people interested in your company, what it's selling, to be able to pay, right? To be able to get your product out there, to be able to pay for the people that work there. If every single marketing guy quit, it would take it could be years before we saw the effect. Because if they just keep reusing the market, okay, let's assume that they just stop marketing when the marketing guy quits, which won't happen, but this is a hypothetical situation. It would be a couple of months. And then the entire world would be in complete chaos, more so than if the janitor quit. Because guess what? The janitor also doesn't have a job. The security guards don't have jobs, because all these businesses are going out of business. Like anything that sells a online service, a product that is shipped out, right? Not in physical stores, they're going under completely. Their sales are tanking so deep that they're going to bankrupt. Everybody loses their job in that situation. And if you think that's not a big deal, think about the fact that most of the jobs in the United States are these types of jobs. Right? They're firms that work for other places, outsourcing, and relatively staying in remote places as management detached from everybody else. If you don't have marketing, you don't have a business. And I know this because I did marketing. You know what happens when I don't post the ads for the company? If I make a shitty ad, we lose potential business and people have to be laid off. Here's the thing, is that because of what I was able to do in a company, I would say about 3 people got hired to that company, which isn't a lot, but think about that. Me sitting around doing relatively nothing, and trust me, I was not doing a lot. Me doing that got jobs for 3 people because we were selling such high-ticket items that a few extra sales mattered. The livelihood of 3 people for a Facebook ad that was run for $200. This is the way that things work. And yes, the immediate things are more noticeable, and props to everybody in the service industry. I was there. It sucks. It is good to be appreciated in those situations. But let's be honest. Let's not be facetious for the sake of selling a catchy idea online that just makes people feel worse about the reality that they live in.
By now you're starving. Good news? You technically get a lunch break. Bad news? Lunch breaks are a myth. Sure, the company handbook says you get a full hour, but in reality, it plays out more like this. You spend 20 minutes waiting in line for food. Right as you take your first bite, your boss sends an urgent Slack message. Carol from accounting corners you in the break room to tell you in excruciating detail about her cat's gluten allergy. Tastes like capitalism.
I hate fallacies, but I'm going to call this one the word count point fallacy. Because honestly, he just took a point that is non-existent and turned it into a story on top of that. How long was that? That was like 45 seconds? Good grief. Here, you want to solve that? Ghost Carol, don't listen to her. Learn to avoid her and meal prep. Bring your lunch to work. Wow, I solved the whole problem. Lunch breaks aren't a myth. What, would you just prefer it if they didn't give you a lunch break? I mean, it comes back to the same thing. You're going to complain about it either way. If they say, you know what, just don't go off the clock and get your food while you're on the clock and work and eat, you would be like, oh my gosh, this isn't standard work practice. We need a lunch break, a designated lunch break. And then if you have the lunch break, you find reasons why it's actually not a lunch break. You say, I need a full designated hour to consume my sandwich. And everything else that happens in the time that I need to get that sandwich to my office or to consume it, anything outside of munching does not count. You have to pay me for that also. It wouldn't work. It's not a good model, first of all, because you don't need an hour to eat. If you do, you're eating too much and you're going to get fat. That's one point. Another is that if you have an hour-long lunch break, they give you an hour because they know it'll take time to get your food. Because they know that it only takes 15 minutes to eat a fucking sandwich. Holy shit. This isn't a lunch break plus swiping on your phone for an hour break. That's what people want. They think lunch and break. No, it's time to eat food. That's what you get. You're reframing the whole concept of the lunch break. And I'm not digging it, dude. You're making a problem where there is one. Here's the thing about jobs that don't exist, right? Fake jobs here. Is it when you have a fake job, everything is so mind-numbingly easy that you have to create the problems for yourself. And that's what this whole thing is. Like, this video is literally creating problems for the people working in this. Literally manufacturing the perception of this whole thing to make it seem as though it's a problem, so then there will be a struggle, so then it might actually feel like you're doing something, but the thing that you're struggling against is the concept that nothing matters, which is bullshit. It does matter. Would you rather convince yourself that shit matters or that it doesn't, and that you don't actually get what you're doing, and that every single aspect of your life is depressing? It's your choice.
However, the finish line is in sight. The workday is almost over, except it never actually ends, because you're on salary, which means your boss can email you at 9 p.m. with a quick favor. And you better respond, because if you don't, Steve from IT will. And suddenly, Steve's getting that promotion you always wanted.
This is actually really funny, because I didn't realize this the first playthrough, but if you're on salary, every single other point previously mentioned just becomes mute. Like, it is gone. It doesn't matter. None of the other points matter if you're on salary. Lunch break doesn't matter because your pay doesn't change. The fucking, oh my god, what? The fake work doesn't matter. The phone calls out of nowhere don't matter. The always on schedule doesn't matter. You know why? Is because if you're signing up for a salary job, you've agreed to that. You've agreed that the work is going to be sporadic, that it's not going to happen consistently, and they need you when it's there, and that's why they're paying you a base salary with those expectations in mind. Like, again, I said this so many times. The framing, if you take the idea of salary, right, and say that this forces you to do this other thing that only really matters if you're on an hourly wage, right? Taking work off the clock only really sucks if you're paid an hourly wage, because you're not getting paid for that work. So if you're saying that he has to do it because of salary, that's fine, because it doesn't suck on salary. You've consciously agreed to that. That's part of the deal. But if you're saying that it sucks because of an hourly wage, you can't combine those two things. You know what I'm saying? The work on salary that sucks, that you're not getting paid for, you're not forced to do. But if you try to rationalize that you're forced to do it because of a salary scenario, you lose both points, because there was never one to begin with. You're creating problems. You're manufacturing problems. And people do this with a lot of things in life, is they'll mix together two things that generally cancel each other out and then use it to make an additional point that you can't quite wrap your head around, but you can't quite deny either. Isn't this fun? And then the cherry on top is pitting you against the other people in the office, as though everybody in every circumstance is inherently more likely to get a raise than you, to get ahead in front of you because of some unfortunate circumstance, because of something completely outside of your control, when in fact, you control those things. If you don't want the raise, don't get on salary and don't be on call. You'll get more free time, but you won't have as much money. What are you willing to spend time doing? What are you willing to pay for? Because what do you want? You can't have both. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't have the higher salary without the additional work. That's just entitlement. And you're creating a scenario in your head again. It's a fantasy scenario that doesn't exist. And you're comparing it to reality and getting upset at it, right? Making the boogeyman in your mind to attack because there is nothing else that creates conflict in your life, right? This could be resolved if you even just had a fucking hobby. Jesus Christ. Create conflict there. Like, oh my God, I need to afford my Warhammer 40K figurines next month. I want to have a better collection than my friends, so I need to bust my ass. Dude, suddenly the lack of conflict doesn't matter because you have something. It doesn't matter if it's like consumeristic conflict. It's something. It's more than what other people have, like what Netflix. I need more time to watch Netflix shows. And then you're going to binge it. All right, if you had a few days off from work, you binge a Netflix show, you spend 13 hours a day watching Netflix, and then you feel like garbage because you realize how unproductive it was. And it's just more lack of conflict, making your life miserable, creating a shitty life that'll give you depression, and then you'll take that depression and say that the depression gave you a shitty life, and you'll have more things to blame, more pity, more free time, more nothing, less conflict, and you'll just keep sinking deeper into this perpetuated hole. All you needed to do was find anything to do. At all. All you needed to do was want anything other than nothing. Because if you say, I want more free time, I want to just chill, I want to relax, I want to be content, those are nothing points. You want more time to rot? Really? Your fake job that you don't do anything at, that doesn't make you feel like you're doing anything, that makes you want to do more of nothing? Get over yourself, fucktard. This pisses me off. Sorry, that sounded a bit cringe. I'm getting too emotional. I need to put more irony in my statements. This pisses me off, honestly, because we've allowed people to get to a situation where they're allowed to talk about these menial, just generic, nothing issues that are manufactured out of thin air, and we're allowed to we validate them so much. All we have to do is say, you're fucking lazy. You're uninteresting. You have no hobbies. You're unhealthy. You're fat. You're not active. You're boring, frankly. Depressing to be around. Nobody wants to be around you because you just complain all the time and it rubs off on us, and then we get depressed. We don't want to spend time around you. Even just wanting to be accepted by your peers would solve so many of those problems. Saying, oh, I want to make friends with Jared from accounting, but you're a complaining ass, whiny little bitch. You might just stop that behavior to become friends with somebody. And then guess what? Because you're not focusing on all the things you could complain about, life actually starts seeming better. Because you're not so focused on everything that sucks. You're focused on something that matters right in front of you. You're in the present. You're trying to make a friend. And for once, you're not focusing on the shitty things that are going on in life, and you just don't notice them. Do that. Try it. Try it. Try it for 5 years consistently without complaining. Tell me how it goes. Because it might take that long. Who knows? And if you're complaining internally, it won't work. So you got to find something to distract yourself for 5 years. Oh, wow. That sounds like a really good way to find something like a hyperfixation, a hobby, an interest, something to get passionate about. Wow. Wouldn't that be novel? Isn't that what you wanted? Wait a minute. Oh, wait. You could just do that. You could just shut the fuck up and solve your problems at the same time. Oh, wow.
But let's be real. That promotion won't save you. It just means more work, slightly better pay.
Yes, right there, officer. That's the one. He did it again. He's been doing it constantly. Officer, please arrest this man. Do you know what can you guess what I'm gonna say? Can you fucking guess? You know what I'm gonna say. It won't save you because it will give you the things that you already had while on salary and the hourly wage, as previously stated. What, do you think they're going to send you more emails? They're going to take up more of your off-work time than you already had? You already maxed that out with complaining. You said, oh, there is no time left to do any of those things that you want to do, like Netflix and jerk off, right? It won't save you because nothing will ever save you because you're always doing your best. I believe in you, buddy. You're always doing your best and nothing ever good happens to you. You should really believe that. Trust me, nothing will get better. Don't strive. Don't try to do anything. Don't try to be better where you're at when you're at and in the moment when you can do it. Don't do that because nothing will get better because you're doing your best right now. Good job. Your life sucks and you're doing your best. Doesn't that mean that, oh no, that means that my life can't get better because I'm already doing my best. So I would have to do more than my best to create a life that didn't suck and I can't do that. Therefore, I'm stuck with a life that sucks. And maybe if I was just in a better situation, a better circumstance, if companies were required to pay more and give us more free time, give me a 4-hour work week, please give me a 4-hour work week. Do 4 hours a day, 4 hours a day, 4 days a week, please, please. They do it in the Netherlands. It works really well. Please do it. Please do it. Please, 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 please. Nobody ever in the world has to work 8 hours a day because nothing ever requires 8 hours a day ever. And I'm doing my best, and nothing ever happens, nothing ever changes, I can't do anything about it because I'm doing my best. That's all I hear. Whining, bitching, complaining, make your situation better or die.
And a fancier title that makes you feel important while you rot inside. Studies show that the average worker puts in an extra 9 hours of unpaid overtime every week, thanks to emails, Slack messages, and the always-on work culture. So even when you're off the clock, you're never really off.
Studies show that people taking studies, doing surveys, self-report any piece of data that makes them look better. Like, for example, the average penis size self-reported is a full 1 inch longer, almost exactly, than the one that is done in surveys when measured by a physician. Isn't that fan-fucking-tastic? You think 9 hours a week of answering. Do you know how much the average person spends on fucking TikTok or any? It's 6 hours of screen time a day. Maybe not on TikTok, but just across every single app. Do you think if 6 times 7, 36, I believe 6 times 7. No, oh my god, I'm so fucking retarded. 6 times 7, that's 42. Do you think out of 42 hours that you're spending on your screen, if you get diverted for 9 of those hours, which is close to maybe 20% of the time, for the chance to get a better raise, do you think that's that's like a bad deal? And that's an optional thing, by the way. You can spend 20% of your doom scrolling time answering emails so then you can get more fucking money? Are you shitting me? You're complaining about... This is an opportunity, see? This is hope. You can look at this as an opportunity, or you can look at it as a curse. Just like they say about every single tragedy that happens ever. But seriously, find some other source of conflict so you can stop this bitching and moaning. Good fucking grief. Please.
And just like that, another soul-crushing day comes to an end. You get home, exhausted, too drained to enjoy the few hours of free time you have left. Maybe you watch an episode of something, scroll on your phone, and suddenly, boom, it's midnight. You swear you'll wake up early to be productive, but the alarm hits like a brick. And before you know it, you're back in traffic, back at your desk, back in another pointless meeting. It's a never-ending cycle.
An endless cycle, assuming you have the gall to fucking assume that every single bad habit that people have is an immutable characteristic. thing is, people don't want to change their bad habits if there's no incentive to do so. Again, I say you must have desires, you must have other things you want to do with your time. What are you doing when you're waking up early to be productive? What, answer more work emails that you were complaining about? Like this he said, scroll on your phone, watch an Netflix of episode of Netflix, or like the guy in the video, drink a beer. If that's what you do with your free time, if that's all that you're pursuing, and you might say, oh, but I really want to learn an instrument, but I really don't have time. You have time. That's the time. Do you think that you can practice piano for more than a fucking hour a day and not hurt your brain? No, you can't. You have the time to do it. Do it right now. And if you won't, we are safe to assume that you just say that you want to do it. So then your life is not as just socially awkward to talk about. That's what it really comes down to. What, you're defending your bad habits by basically insinuating that they are immutable characteristics within the core of your being, that everybody does this, guys. Everybody does what I do. I don't get why other people are more successful than me. Everybody works 8 hours and then goes home and presumably spends the rest of that 6 hours awake scrolling on their phone and watching one single episode of Netflix while drinking one beer, and they have no time for anything else except for that. Really, this is pathetic. This is the most pathetic rationalization I think I've ever heard, and I hear it all the time. I can't lose weight because I just don't burn calories like anybody else. Guys, the metabolic window of difference between any two people of the same weight and height is 500 calories. That's a single Big Mac. You might be upset that some person can eat another Big Mac than you and not gain that pound. Sorry, 3,000 calories is a pound. That 0.2 pounds or some bullshit that you will. But you can also just not eat the Big Mac. Guess what? Then you have more money. Guess what? Then you have more time. Guess what? Then you look better, feel better, do everything better. Wouldn't that be incredible? What, you might have to face 2 weeks of an adjustment cycle, assuming that you don't binge, to get your ghrelin regulation and circadian clocks and all the timing and everything just back to a normal baseline. And this is assuming you haven't gotten to the point where you have insulin problems and diabetes and long-term chronic dependence on comfort foods and whatnot. And if you do in that case, then it'll be harder, but people will still assume the exact same thing about your discipline. So are you going to change it now? Or are you going to still wait and let it get worse? Because apparently there might be a more opportune time in the future for you to do it. Or you can wait until you can afford a Zempic and then do it. No, the best time to start was yesterday, and the next best time is right now. It is never tomorrow. Do something, fucking anything. Seriously, if you have a 9 to 5, you have 6 hours of extra time. Do you know how much shit you can do in 6 hours? If you just plan around it? Sure, you can go through your life scrolling for 30 minutes at every single interval that you get free time, and that will chop out that 6 hours almost immediately like that. But consider if you had something you wanted to do, you wouldn't have time to do that. Do you really want to scroll on your phone so fucking much that you will give up on hobbies, aspirations, dreams, relationships, and any other extracurricular achievement like running a marathon because of it? Are you serious? You're telling me that you would rather do that. You would rather rot and become bitter and maintain your reason to complain and get pity from people because that's what you know and that's what's familiar. Wouldn't you prefer it if something else was familiar? Wouldn't you prefer it if you could look back on these years of your life and actually think to yourself, man, I did something, I earned that. It wasn't just an empty job, a fake job. I worked and I still managed to do things with my life. Wouldn't that be nice to think about? Sure, will it suck in the moment sometimes? Is it hard to get out of bed? Yeah. But if you can't if you can't even fucking pull yourself out of bed while you're groggy, you will not have the resolve to do anything else in life worth doing. If everything between a 9 and a 5 is waiting, purgatory, you will have the resolve to do nothing in life. You have so much free time. So much free time. And this situation assumes you have a vehicle, as stated in the beginning. That means you are absolutely not traveling an hour each way. And if you are, there are things to do on the way home. All those things you want to do, you can do it halfway. I know that there's a chain of excuses that goes all the way to the moon. But is that what you want? Do you want to spend all of your time, all your mental energy thinking about complex and convoluted excuses so then you can maintain the shitty life that you have that you don't want? Really? Okay.
Wake up, work, go home too tired to live, sleep, then repeat. And before you even realize it, 40 years have passed, and they give you a plaque and a $20 Starbucks gift card as a thank you for sacrificing the best years of your life. That's why every 9 to 5 feels like a life sentence. You're not just working a job, you're serving time.
There's a Karl Marx quote that I will actually use sometimes, and it's not because I believe in communism. It is because if used in any other context than communism, it's actually incredibly valid. And it goes, from each according to his ability, to each according to his needs. And the original implication was that, oh, we're all doing the same amount of labor, so we should all get the same things. But the way I see it, for each man according to his ability, to each man according to his needs, you will get in return what you give. If you don't have the ability to give somebody, like in literal terms, the amount of money that is made from a business, you don't deserve that kind of salary. If you cannot provide literally the backbone that will create the amount of money that you want to get out of life, you don't deserve that money. You're just kidding yourself. If you had a business and you needed some pencil pushers, would you pay them as much as people want to be paid now? Would you feel like that's a fair deal? Because maybe you would. Maybe you would. But if you're not in that situation and you can't pay those people, you don't deserve the salary of the person in that position. What you're able to provide, and mind you, on the basis of other people's evaluation, you never get to evaluate your own work. It is always evaluated by other people. They get the final say. You have to appeal to others if you want them to appeal to you. So if you're able, under the judgment of others, to provide the value of the salary that you desire, then you will get it. If you can't, shut the fuck up and get to work to build the skill to be able to provide that value. Because otherwise, you have a fake job. That's what defines the fake job, is the person sitting in the chair. Not the job title, the person sitting in the chair. So he does an extra 1 minute of a recap of what he's actually already said, and then says this, so I am cutting out about a minute of his video here.
Grind long enough, they'll climb to the top. But the truth is, the ladder has missing rungs. That promotion might never come, your raise won't keep up with inflation, and the job at the top, already taken by the CEO's nephew.
Nepotism. I remembered the word. It's nepotism. Nepotism.
Meanwhile, skilled workers actually move up, starting as apprentices, gaining experience, and even running their own businesses.
Same thing applies to all the people with the college degrees and their situations, but we're assuming the worst case scenario, and we're assuming the worst case scenario for the people with the college degrees, for the people that go into white collar work, and we're assuming the best case scenario for the people in the blue collar work. We have the same scenarios across both fields with different problems under different names. Continuing on.
Brand engagement. Think about it this way. If your job really mattered, the world would feel it if you suddenly stopped working. If you could disappear tomorrow and nothing would change, you're in the wrong place. That's exactly what one of my old colleagues realized. We were stuck in the same office job, but his passion was fixing cars. At first, he just took side gigs from coworkers, changing tires, doing small repairs. Eventually, the demand grew, and now He quit his office job and runs a successful car business without a degree, just by mastering a skill and going all in.
So you mean to tell me that this guy didn't get the college degree that you said that you needed, that everybody had, and didn't get the job because they didn't have the college degree, and now that their life sucks because they got the college degree and went into the job, that he doesn't have the college degree, still got the job, and that he was actually doing things in his free time other than watching Netflix and drinking beer and scrolling on his phone, and that got him the opportunity that he now has? You mean you're meaning to tell me that everything you said was fucking bullshit this whole time? That you're one example of a friend that made things work and became happy and started a business, became independent. He wasn't subject to all these made-up conditions that you put in this video? Isn't that fantastic? Guys, all you need to do is ignore everything he said and just take the example of his buddy. Okay? Very nice.
My point is, the whole dream of the 80s office life, suits, water coolers, pointless meetings, and Karens fighting over thermostat settings, is outdated thinking. That version of success was built for a different world. We're in 2025 now. The internet, digital tools, creative industries, and remote work have completely rewritten the rules. You don't need to beg for a promotion anymore. You can literally create your own opportunities. No, I'm not saying you need to rage quit your job, throw your tie in the trash, and start a YouTube channel tomorrow. Though, tempting. But if you take the time to build a skill that makes you irreplaceable, whether that's creative, technical, hands-on, or even niche as hell.
Everything that I said already, basically. The problem is that most people work a 9 to 5. The situation that you're talking about, and you can do the same thing in that 9 to 5. Most people have interests related to that 9 to 5. Most people will be in businesses related to those 9 to 5. So you can go into your 9 to 5 and still get those skills, make yourself irreplaceable. You're not out of place. You don't need to go into a niche, a creative outlet. Most people get fucking drained by that. They hate it. It just rips them apart. It's so difficult. Most people will be better off, happier in situations like a 9 to 5 and turning that into a business adventure if they feel like it, or they can just become irreplaceable and get a high salary position in a situation in a 9 to 5 type of business where they will flourish. You don't have to discredit everybody in the 9 to 5 thing, and that's mostly everybody. So this whole thing was kind of pointless. Oh, I'm having a fun time, lads and ladies, fags and females. Isn't this nice?
You'll always have doors open. That's the kind of leverage no corporate title can give you.
Are you fucking kidding me? Having one of those titles gives you one of the most leverage in the world. That's why people have to sign agreements saying that they won't switch jobs, because if you manage to lock down a C-suite individual, and they're good at their job, they will get an offer from a competing business that is higher than what you're paying them, and you have to make sure that they can't do that. People that really make themselves valuable in the corporate world, in any 9 to 5 world, always have doors open, because having that 20 years of experience, it's always on Indeed.com, that is impossible to get if you're just starting out. Having that 20 years of experience can make you get a job anywhere, literally anywhere, if you have the right skill set. Nobody has more doors open than you. All you have to do is get to that point. And sure, it's hard to start out, but it's hard to start out everywhere. People say that YouTube, for example, is not a business that everybody should go into because it takes so much commitment at the beginning without any return. It's the same way with every single financial venture in life, ever. You need to put in that commitment without expecting anything to get the experience that will allow you to have those doors open.
And some people genuinely love the white-collar jobs. The structure, the team environment, the predictable routine. If that's your dream, go for it. But before you lock yourself into a cubicle for the next 40 years, ask yourself one thing. Is this path truly yours, or just the one you were handed? Because here's the truth. The world doesn't reward the most educated anymore. It rewards the most useful. Degrees might get your foot in the door, but skills are what keep you in the room. And at the end of the day, when the Wi-Fi cuts out or your toilet floods, Chad from marketing isn't the one fixing it.
Yeah, it's whoever watches the fucking YouTube tutorial on how to do basic ass shit that's fixing it. Yeah, he ended on useful things, preceded by a total of 8 minutes of bullshit. So, I agree with him there at the end. Don't listen to any of the other stuff. Straight up, because if you're just gonna alienate the most, frankly, the most consistent path in life to get into just because of bad situations and a massive amount of people following bad advice and having totally unrealistic expectations about what they're going into, and realize that the struggle is the same no matter what. It's just a difference of what you're doing. If you can get that in your mind, then do anything. Do anything. You will suffer. It will suck. And at the beginning, if there's something that you will become really passionate about, you won't become passionate about it until you hate it for a few years. Please trust me on that. You have to hate something to love it at some point, whether it's at the beginning, the middle, or the end. The people that have the longest lasting relationships are the ones that can get through the moments where they absolutely despise each other. Because that kind of long-term commitment means that you are willing to put up with a level of bullshit that nobody else is. It is the ability to overcome those moments that defines whether or not you will get that long-term success.